Actually are, right? So the first one here is over 464.7 million people listen to podcasts globally as of 2023. That's almost half a billion, right? That's almost 500 million people listening to podcasts. So, if you're if you're not on it, um, consider it because that's the kind of market that you're looking at tapping into, right? And 38% of Americans listen to podcasts monthly, right? And that's just over 100 million people. So if you're in the States alone, you've got a huge marketplace, right? Like an astronomically large marketplace. So American guys and girls, like this is something that you guys need to get your paws
Ham's,
all over.
Ham's nodding along. He agrees.
Yes, exactly. Sounds like, yep, 100%. And so the third one I've got down here is podcast listeners are expected to reach 160 million in the US alone by 2025. So, 2025 is just around the corner and it's gonna double it's well, yeah, almost gonna double. You've got 60 million plus people coming into the podcast space. So again, I mean, I'm just driving the nail home here, guys. Like, get on podcasts, start creating podcasts, start, building your brand with podcast integration because the number of your potential clients and listeners is only increasing. So it's like, do you want a piece of the pie or not? And then finally, 80% of the listeners listen to all or most of each episode, which shows a high amount of engagement, right? And so, we just look at like traditional content creation, such as YouTube videos, right? People experiment with vlogs. We saw vlogs coming up massively in the early like 2000s, like 2010. That's the stuff that was really hyped and booming. But retention does drop off after a while, especially if your content starts to become a bit stagnant. With a podcast, because it's so dynamic, it's primarily displayed through an audio um, format, but then you've also got the video feed there. It's something that people are consuming while concurrently doing other activities. And if your podcast is an information-based podcast, then you're just doubling up on value. So again, there's really no reason to not start podcasting.
Love it, bro. I'm just going to run through a couple podcasts which I find really interesting. Probably podcasts which a lot of you watching this will not think are the brands or the companies that would look at starting podcasts. People such as Goldman Sachs, you have JP Morgan, just the two of the main ones which I want to highlight here of being so important because Goldman Sachs are probably, whether you love them or hate them or have no view at all, you know, these are not your typical people that you think would have a podcast, but these aren't silly people either. These people know a lot about the space and especially JP Morgan as well. And they're using it to their advantage. And I think the main reason why is they're able to deliver clear, precise information. And they're also putting names and people towards a brand.
Yeah.
And probably brands that haven't been seen as the best in the past. They might have been seen as, the guys who want to make the most money or whatever it is, but they're now humanizing it. They're making it authentic to their brand. I think it's only going to benefit them. And I follow these types of podcasts quite religiously. I see what they do. I try and see the type of content they're putting out, as I think these are the guys in the space which are very important because they're the ones who are going to inspire a lot of other smaller companies to do it, especially if you're a podcast producer or have a podcast business like
Yeah.
three of us on this call and the people watching this as well. And I think after this, we got to go with Sam. I'll unmute you quickly because I quite like to hear your view on this. Um, if you've got your mic connected, what
Setting
are
up.
Yeah.
your hello first and foremost?
What's up, dude?
Hi.
I wanted to talk about the benefits of podcasting for businesses. What are your kind of views, the people you've dealt with so far? What have been the biggest sort of benefits to their business? And I'll run through some after.
Yeah. I would say with a lot of the clients I've worked with and continue to work with now, I'd say the biggest benefits are one, content creation. So they're doing a lot of repurposing of podcast content
Mhm.
into snippets, into blogs, into long form LinkedIn posts, kind of using it everywhere, talking with getting their own customers on the podcast, and then, hearing some of the win stories there and getting some case studies from that. Um, I'd say a lot of them are also interviewing prospects on their podcast. So they're building relationships with people who are potential buyers,
Yeah.
and not only that, but they're also learning about the challenges of those potential buyers and hearing in their words how they think about the problems that they're trying to solve, and their
Mm.
approaches to the solutions for those problems.
Mate, I
Um,
completely agree.
yeah. So, and I think it also, and this is just with video in general, um, having that face there really humanizes the brand. It also, helps whoever's hosting the podcast build, their own personal brand, but
Yeah.
it helps, you know, people connect with the actual company behind the product.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think also, especially for smaller companies in the space, it helps them sort of build authority over these bigger companies, in my opinion. It allows them to deliver a specific, tailored message to people who like to digest content in a different way these days. And
Yeah.
like you said before, I actually think that's probably the most important piece is repurposing the content. And I think a lot of brands are starting to see this now. A lot of CEOs or big companies, like they don't want to sit there and film content and talk into a camera.
Yeah.
Where when you have a podcast, you have an hour of authentic content, long form content, which you can put on YouTube, the MP3 versions to Spotify, Apple, wherever it is, LinkedIn. And then you can also put the short form reels, which you can then cut up into 5, maybe 10 short form reels per episode, which is so important again for your Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever it is, wherever your market is, LinkedIn. And I think that makes it an incredible cost-effective marketing strategy and lowering the production prices. What you can film it on StreamYard, you could film it on Riverside FM, or if you want to go on the high end side of things, you could film in person, film with a proper producer and cameras and lights, and you can make some amazing content in maybe an hour and a half of your time, which you can then recycle into 20 videos if you wanted to, which I think that's really appealing for the brands, and especially the networking side of things. I think that's probably the most undervalued and overlooked thing in the podcasting space is the people you can bring on. If you message someone and you say to them, "Oh, do you want to go and have a catch up? I've never met you before. I'd love to introduce myself." They're more than likely 99% of the time going to say no. But if you say to them, "Would you like to come on a podcast? We're going to make this amount of content. It's going to be an hour of time talking about these things, listening to your story. We'll send everything to you if you want to use it. We just love to talk to you and love to hear a bit more about your story, as we think it's going to help a lot of people listening to our show as well." 9 times out of 10, in my opinion, or maybe less, people are going to who see that message are going to say yes if they're interested in coming on a podcast. It's a win-win situation for them, and I think that's one of the biggest things and one of the benefits of podcasts for companies as a whole is, as a company, you can be seen as an inhumane, just a name. There's no face to the name, and people tend to shy away from it. Having a podcast allows you to dominate all those aspects in particular. And the next part we're going to go on is about podcasting at home. And this is something we get asked all the time on social media, on Instagram is, "Tom, how do we start a podcast and what's the easiest ways to do it?" So we're going to run through this with you. Siobhan, obviously, we film in person. We have a
Yeah.
proper camera setup, which is run by Siobhan, who's the head of production. So we have cameras, box lights, ATEMs, microphones, everything you kind of need. But for me, this is going to be the easiest way which you guys can film at home. And I want to see the boys' view on this as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to put up Riverside FM. So you should see Riverside here
Yeah.
in a second. So this is us. We film a lot of our MP3 stuff on Riverside, and it's quite easy to do. You literally switch on, you go to studio, you enter your name, Tom. I'm not using headphones. I'll just mute it for the purpose of this. And these are our files, and you just simply press start recording. You can have your camera on the computer or whatever you find best. You can have a script, which we use for our MP3, where everything's at the top, and we just break it down very easily. We can read through it. It allows us, when we don't have the cameras on in particular, it's easy to use. And even with the camera on, it's also, you can't even tell you're looking at it. It looks like you're looking straight into the microphone as well. And you simply send a link to the person joining, and it's as easy as that. And once you're finished, you export the file. You can edit it and produce it from Riverside FM, which we don't do. We then send it to CapCut or Premiere Pro. If it's just this, I normally just use CapCut because it's super easy, super simple. When we're doing the more in-depth editing, what we do in studio with the Blackmagic cameras, we'll use Premiere Pro and do proper color grading. But this, if you're looking for a cost-effective way to start a podcast in 2024 at home, please use this and connect a microphone or StreamYard. Both are really good. Sam, do you have anything else you film on?
Yeah, I really like using Squadcast. It's made by Descript. Well, it's now a part of Descript, which is cool.
Yeah,
It
I've
used
heard
to be
about them.
used to be a standalone product that lets you record up to 4K virtually, and it records, locally and uploads afterwards. It's very similar to Riverside, but the added benefit now is that if you use Descript to edit your podcast, it's now a free add-on for Descript.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So, and Descript's, it's similar to Riverside if you've seen like the transcript based editing, which is a really nice feature. But I would say as an editing tool, it's a lot better than Riverside. For recording at home, I mean, I'm recording this at home. I put together this little studio in my basement
Looking good.
thank you, just about a month ago. And it was like a couple $100 to get everything. What I usually do is I've got a MacBook Pro as my computer, and if you've got a newer MacBook and a newer iPhone, you can actually use your phone cameras
Yeah.
directly as your webcam. So it gives super high quality footage from that. And then as far as the rest of the gear, I've got an upcoming blog about it, but I use an ATR 2100 mic, which I got for under $50. I've got a little shock mount here that's like 15, and then this boom arm, I don't know, was 25-ish. And then the only other things I've got are two kind of LED lights, which were in a pack for $50, and a stand for my phone when I use that as a camera.
And that
So
works perfectly.
yeah, it works great. It's what I use for when I've been on podcasts, when I'm creating other content. Like I've been doing a fair amount of YouTube stuff. So yeah.
Nice, mate. I love that. I'm just going to share a couple of sites which we then produce and can post the podcast on. I put a little poll in the podcast industry network chat the other day, and everyone was saying how they loved using Buzzsprout. What do you use? Because we use Captivate FM, which I'll show you here. These are our stats. This is inside of mine. We've just launched literally season 2 the other day, and going through season 1 as well. But I find this site incredibly useful. Everything I kind of need is cost effective as well. I've got everything planned, scheduled, ready to go for the next month. And I simply just press upload, and I'll show you here. If you guys are at home and you haven't done a podcast before, and you just press distribute, and it will distribute it to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Deezer, Player FM, and all of these down below. And then we do a lot of our bulk on YouTube, which I'll show you here as well, which we've done in a year. We did 131,000 views. We produced content like this, which is done by the legend Sravan, who's on the screen right now. And then also split our podcast into 3 parts, which I wanted to talk about next, why we do that. When we went to the podcast show in London, people were talking about the importance of retention rates. And this is something that's not really discussed a lot of the time, and how important retention rate was. And I saw that ours was 42%. We were doing an hour-long podcast, and then we split it into 3, didn't we?
Yeah.
We just wanted to try it, see if it was better. We saw people do it before, and our retention rate went from 42% to 92% when digesting in 20-minute episodes, which was so important for people watching this on YouTube, people watching this on record, and Sam as well. It was one of the best decisions we made because it boosted us up the algorithm really quickly. Although the podcast charts can be a bit random, I'm sure, as you know, it's boosted us to 45 in the mental health space on podcasts. And also with working with clients as well, we were able to get in the top 150 podcasts from release. Split it into 3 parts, the consistency of that. You're getting 3 times the content, although it's one piece, turned into short form content, as we discussed before, and just making loads of long form content and loads of short form content just from that 1 hour has been able to push us through the algorithms really quickly. And
It's
also
like a whole month, isn't it? It's like a whole month of content we've got basically just ready to send.
Exactly, especially for people that don't have time watching this as well.
Mm.
No, a lot of you might find it stressful filming, but just filming for that hour, finding ways to work around it. You can take a best moment from that 1 hour podcast. You can split it into 3 parts, and then you can make 5 to 10 reels, which I'm going to show you. The quickest and easiest way, in my opinion, to do that is through a lovely app. Is if we're just doing really quick reels and we want to get done quickly, which is just called Opus Pro. I'll show you here. And this is a lifesaver. Sam, I know you might use something similar to this. There's quite a few things out there, but for us, this has just been so useful. Let's log in quickly.
Yeah, I've used about I think I've used around 20 different tools like Opus. I definitely put Opus at the kind of towards the top of that range, though. Descript has also been adding in a lot of the AI features that are powering Opus, so I would say they're catching up. But if you don't use Descript, Opus is a great tool. Yeah.
Such a good tool. So it'll break down everything here, what you're saying in each one. These, I'm not too sure on these in particular. The rankings, I think they're important, but I'd stay away from these. They are important, but they can be a bit hit or miss, in my opinion.
Yeah, don't get too caught up on the analytics there.
Clips everything up for you. And then if you want to edit it, you press edit clip. If you guys see, you run through, you have transitions, you have text. They're still updating this all the time as well, which I find really useful. And then you have captions, which you can use. They give you loads of different presets. And that would be the quickest and easiest way, which I would do it at home, especially if you want a high level one, like Sam was saying before, using those sites such as Descript as well, and Squadcast, using Riverside FM and StreamYard, and then using Opus Pro for your clips. In my opinion, it's hard to go wrong from there, especially if you're trying to do it on a budget and you're trying to produce a massive amount of content too. You know, I think Riverside FM's around $20 a month and Opus Pro is around $19 a month. So super cost effective. You can produce a load of content from there, and Captivate FM is around $20 a month as well. And that's just on those 3. There's plenty of other things as well, such as Buzzsprout. But if you have those 3 things in place, and then you can use CapCut if you want to add, you know, music behind it. And Sravan, that's probably your gig to talk about, you know, the where you find the right music, especially for our podcast.
Yep.
You do all that stuff. It's honestly, it's very cost effective and you can do it well. Look how clean Sam's camera is right now. I'm in the office right now on my Mac, so I haven't got my home setup. but look how clean that is just from the comfort of his home. He said in his basement, £200 to set up, and it looks top notch. And that's high quality content which you could put on social media as well.
Yeah, from next to like no investment really.
Yeah, a really comfortable amount.